Welcome to today's Let's Talk Innovation webcast as a part of the Intel and DST Innovate for Digital India Challenge. Steve Jobs once said that innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower, and who better to epitomize that than Micromax. Over the past decade, Micromax has pioneered the democratization of technology for Indian consumers, bringing in affordable computing devices. We're extremely privileged to be joined by Mr. Vikas Jain, the co-founder of Micromax Informatics.
Thank you.
Vikas, you've played a crucial role in bringing Micromax to where it is today. You've been the person behind the launch of the first long-lasting battery phone, to now launching the top-of-the-line 4G phones, to Micromax's foray into tablets, and the recently launched laptop. I know that you uphold diligence and perceptiveness in every endeavor that you undertake. Because you know that Micromax has that inherent edge above all the other competitors in knowing the pulse of the Indian consumer. And for all of you, Vikas has been part of the Innovate for Digital India journey right from its inception in December to its launch in April. Thank you so much for making time today to talk to us, to talk to the top 20 teams who've been shortlisted and are in Pune right now. Without further ado, I'm now going to hand it over to Vikas, and we'd like you to tell us a little bit about the Digital India Initiative and the Innovation Challenge in particular.
Thank you, Shri. Hey guys, it's great to be one amongst you digitally, as aptly said about the Digital India movement. So here we are having an audience with each other on the digital platform of India. Yeah. And I think a great initiative pioneered by both the private sector as well as government. A lot of focus, a lot of initiative by the government and ably supported by the private organization. Thankful to Intel for starting this initiative in India. And I think amongst the set of budding technologists, evangelists and technocrats that I see amongst the people on the screen, to this side of the table amongst the corporates, I think if the partnership boards well, we are looking at something very disruptive to happen over the next 12 to 24 months. And congratulations to all of you for being at this stage. And I think it's a job that's been very well done, not only by the people who are there amongst this 20, but also the people who are there in the shortlisted and wanted to be a part of it. Digital India, as the name suggests, is the attempt and intent by both the government, the consumers, and the institutions, along with the private sector, to get connectivity to our people of India, to the citizens of India. And it's going to be, a mixed bag of wired and wireless connectivity. Mobile phone, as we know, is driving the next level of internet adoption in India. I think the whole ecosystem is boarding and faring very well. More and more consumers are getting connected, and more consumers are getting connected for utilizing the internet for the best of their interest and the best offtake of the technology. So I'll just say congratulations of being on this platform, and let's hope our interaction over here goes very well and I'm able to add this session, and maybe we will kind of be able to pick up or handpick at least one, if not more, projects which I can add and contribute to. Congratulations once again.
Well, that's fantastic. Great news, guys. Vikas, you're one of the most successful entrepreneurs of your time. What would your advice be to these top 20 teams?
I think being in India, it's very important that we understand why will we be able to make a success. Population for us, unlike in lot more other issues, is the biggest boon we have. And I think in a B2C venture or a business to a consumer venture, if we can really drive the utility or the USP of our product, our concept, our business to be consumer centric and not only get overwhelmed by the technology and try and bring a technology to a consumer. If we can really fit into the requirements of the consumer, that's what makes the first seed towards a successful venture in India.
Great. And what are your expectations from this challenge in these top 20 teams personally?
So I did happen to glance through, I did happen to discuss about what these 20 projects are bringing forth. All I can assure you is all of them promise very good and very big. And personally, I'm convinced that all 20, if not more, will be able to see the light of the day. Now, what will differentiate a successful project from one more, which added to the glory of the Indian entrepreneur, will be how consumer centric can we drive our approach to be for the adoption of the concept to the consumer in his need for a utilitarian application. I think if we can really keep that in our mind as we walk the next step, that is what is going to differentiate a successful project from one more very good concept.
Fantastic. You just mentioned that you'll look at picking, if not more, at least one team to mentor personally. What is it, what are the one or two things that you look for when you pick up these teams?
I think it'll be very important for me to connect with the zeal of the people behind the project. Amongst the set of entrepreneurs, the set of technologists who are behind the project, my connection with them, my, let's say, mind alignment or my thinking alignment with theirs is what is going to be extremely important. I shouldn't be shooting up in the thin air, and the people on the other side who are going to drive the project more methodically, more meticulously, and more on the transactional day-to-day basis, we have to be aligned on that platform. And if we are, I would be really glad to assist to any part for making that project successful.
Fantastic. So guys, there's a big tip for you there. Because you mentioned that, one should look at how consumer-centric that idea is. What else should innovators sort of focus on as they develop a market-ready product?
I think few basics, and I'm sure all of these guys have heard this many a times from various voices. I think it's important for us to think that there is no other alternative except the one that we have. If we are able to live that thought, we know that we want to make it successful. We know that we will make it successful. So first, eliminate all options to the project. Don't think I have a plan B. I'm sorry, guys. I think a lot of time, we do talk about a successful strategy having a plan B, but that's actually an escape route. There's only one plan A, and stitch the plan A to be successful. That's what is going to take the project to success.
Fantastic. So no plan B. How do you think innovation sort of plays a role in enhancing the skill sets of today's workforce and what these people should be doing?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and at Micromax, we kind of live with the thought of innovation. Yeah. So what's innovation to one is more of a hygiene to another set of consumers. We got to understand that. We are talking about evolving our consumers. We are talking about making the consumers adopt our project and making them live this in their lifestyle. So what's important is, one, we identify the need. Two, we use the technology to fulfill that need. The tech does not have to lead it, as I've earlier also said. Yeah. It's going to be a need which will lead the adoption of the tech. So I think amongst our set of projects where we've clearly identified 20 great requirements or needs of the consumer, yeah. If we can keep that paramount and let the technology be the path towards achieving that requirement, I think we've made it.
Fantastic. What are some of your biggest learnings, Vikas, as an entrepreneur, in your journey from bringing Micromax to being an Indian company to being a global MNC?
People is our biggest strength when we are here in India, and people can be our biggest liability still when we are here in India. It's important to bring up our teams. It's important to let the team live the dream through our eyes. It's important for our core team to be as convinced about the project as we are. As I said, it's only a plan A and only a plan A. So whole team has to understand this is the only plan and we have to make it work. The detours that we take in the journey towards achieving the karma or achieving the ultimate, we can take those detours to be the plan B, but as long as the direction, as long as the destiny is same, I think we are all going towards walking the same path somewhere down the line, and all the team has to come in complete unison and achieve for that. So growing the people internally is going to be an equally big challenge, and the people to live the same vision is going to be the next big one.
Fantastic. I think what we'll do now is maybe go across to Pune and take a few questions from our teams there. So if you can just, raise your hand, talk briefly, give us your name, talk briefly about your project, and ask your question to Vikas.
Hello. Uh, Hello, sir. I'm Mayuresh Huli from Sunset Out. We are developing an IoT product for agriculture. So my question is, you are into mobiles, but mobiles require a lot of components and manufacturing. So it would require a lot of capital. So what made you go mobile?
I agree what you're saying, that it looks like a very capital intensive project, but I think as we planned this particular venture for Micromax, we planned it with the cooperation of a lot of partners. So when we walked this journey, we've ensured that we are amongst the company of a lot of partners, and a lot of partners are contributing towards the success of the project and ably are able to get a reward for their partnership. So while I, as Micromax, didn't invest into a manufacturing setup at the start of the day, we did have partners who were willing to put their might behind manufacturing, and yes, we were sharing the proceeds or the profits with them. So we in short try to ensure that a lot of partners who are willing, who are keeping their fingers crossed, and who are really wanting this venture to be successful, because somewhere down the line they had a ulterior motive or even desire for them to be successful as well. So we partnered, we mitigated different risks, we mitigated a cooperation amongst partners, and hence build up the supply chain.
Hi, I'm Sairam. I'm from the team Asha Plus. Basically, we are making a handheld multi-vitals monitoring device. It can do various measurements of say blood pressure, glucose, and etc. We see a very good fit for this product as a household home healthcare device. My question is basically how can we leverage, say for example, a collaboration with Micromax in able to reaching this home healthcare segment?
Great. I think we're walking the first step very well. Micromax per se is a very mass brand, and any concept, any technology which kind of eradicates a problem, a issue, or fulfills a desire for the mass segment of the consumer, that's a concept that as a brand we can relate to. The second important requirement of this would be to profile our target group, profile who are going to be the beneficiaries of this particular technology, this particular utility application that we are willing to provide, and what is the pocket size that they're willing to put aside for this particular utility that we solve. For example, if let's say I'm an elderly back home and I require the different sensors for the tech that you are providing, am I willing to buy it? Am I willing to lease it? Or am I willing to pay for it per use? And basis that, we will have to design the business process. We should not get the target group or the target consumer to change the way he intends to adopt or use the technology for eradicating an issue of life that he has. If we can amalgate and we can come up with a formula which fits into the lifestyle of the consumer, that's going to be the second big ask. And I think thirdly, we have to be very prudent. We are talking about medical science, so the whole accuracy of the results, the whole calibration process, that cannot be compromised basis any price that we are providing the offering on. We got to understand we are talking about something which is mission critical. The reliability of the results, the reliability of the technology, that's a personal liability, that's a personal commitment that we need to give to the consumer.
Hi, I'm Saswat from Team ID. We are developing a product for visually impaired. As of now, we have a smartphone app as well as a hardware prototype which takes voice input as well as input from joystick. We have seen that visually impaired people are very comfortable in using smartphone using the accessibility feature, the talkback. And the smartphone adoption has increased a lot among the visually impaired. As of now, the app is capable of providing the user about his current location to help him navigate to nearby ATM, bus stop, restaurants, hospitals, etc., and to travel to any place of your choice. I wanted to know how can we be associated with Micromax to act as the accessibility partner for them and to reach out to masses in India as well as other emerging countries.
Great. As you spoke, I think I could really relate to the social and the noble cause. We would be extremely open in terms of how could we, provide that particular access to these next set of Indian consumers. I would really love to loop you in with few of my business teams who can take this concept to the market. Let's walk a small pilot, and it'll be very important for us to really see how we can add minimalistic cost to the consumers for this. If need be, we can partner with few more partners we have around this subject, and the idea would be to provide this feature, provide this service, but without an incremental cost to the end consumer. I think it's a very, very noble and able cause, and anything we guys at Micromax can do will be more than welcome. We'll be extremely warm, extremely open in terms of adopting this particular cause into our product line and then pulling it forward.
Fantastic. So that's great news. We'll take 2 more questions from Pune, and then we'll come back to some of the questions that have been coming in on the social feeds.
Hi, myself Amir. We are from Team Arashio. We are building a citizens device for pollution monitoring. So actually we are looking for a form factor like wearable or a case of a phone cover. So actually it's a portable device. So if you can use it as a watch or a phone cover, so it will be much helpful. So we are looking for some kind of, can it be added to different phones, or is it difficult to add different sensors to inside the phone? Or it can be added to wearables as well. So how you look this kind of projects embedded inside phones or smartphones like this?
Good. So guys, I think one thing which I really caught on amongst my interaction with most of the team is the fact that all of you are thinking in the right direction. We've been talking about the whole glam factor around wearables. However, it's very important for a country like India. The wearables have to get into a utilitarian application for a bigger adoption in the ecosystem. So as we talk, while I could figure out that most of you guys are wanting to walk that wearable line of devices, what's an important thing that you've cracked is the fact that you're putting a utility around it. So while the wearable will definitely tell me about my SMS, about my voice call coming in and stuff like that, the ability of the wearable to walk into my lifestyle and do something which is there for my lifestyle is the big reason why it will be adopted in the masses. So I think contrary to the last question which talked about making the hardware into every device, if we can make it as an accessory which can be used with across the form factors, and hence bring the choice to the consumer whose lifestyle is a part of that particular functionality that we are giving, and let that user pay for the technology and the convenience and not the entire mass. I think that's going to be extremely critical. So I would recommend to build that up as an accessory which is compatible to multiple form factors, multiple mobile phones. It could be a brand A, it could be brand B. I think that's what is going to be giving you the economies of scale and will also be a delight to the end consumer.
Hi, I'm Aniket from Hagdarshak. We're trying to create a mobile technology platform for citizens to get access to government and non-government scheme benefits. So basically what we're trying to do is Hagdarshak, a person from the community, goes using a mobile or a tab. It has all the survey questions based on a rules engine, and once he or she takes a survey of people in the community, mapping the rules engine, they can tell the people which schemes they can apply for and get benefits, financial benefits linked to their bank accounts. So what we're seeing basically is that a lot of service providers in big states like Maharashtra, Rajasthan, like IT providers like TCS, Infosys, are already working with the government on the API side of actually making the financial benefits work. We're trying to be the access tool and trying to link it. But My question is that you have on the other end, like other mobile service providers like a Vodafone and Airtel who are getting into financial payments with, you know, M-Pesa and all these things. Where do you think operators like, you know, manufacturers like mobile players, Micromax, can get into, like, what role do you see where there are these service providers providing services to citizens? And does Micromax also come in and help not only by using a app like this, but innately, like what other benefits, especially like systems like, you know, monitoring payments? These are things that if are in a can be built with mobile systems, it can be. I feel like it can really help get that last mile connectivity. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Good question. So, what I can tell you guys is, since you guys are walking into this line of entrepreneurship, please do ensure that all of your projects do not involve a government or any third-party subsidy. So the projects have to be self-reliant and self-funding, and any idea which is dependent on the subsidy of the government is going to have a challenge, because while our government today has been more than open in terms of adopting technology and ensuring the technology reaches up to the masses, I think government is trying to ensure that the ecosystem exists. However, the ability of the government to keep funding these projects over a period of time can be compromised in the times to come. So I think all our projects need to have enough sustainability for them to walk through the phase of time. And in the financial connectivity, that's a big requirement of not the government but the end consumer. We have to understand what part of the problem we are solving, what part of the problem that we are solving is the consumer willing to pay for, and then make a hybrid business model such that maybe the cost of the hardware or maybe the cost of the whole solution cannot be recovered upright, but can be recovered over a period of time. However, my sincere advice, please refrain from making your business plan on any government subsidy. It's wise, it's noble, it's really heartwarming for our government to be providing that startup culture. However, in our own wisdom, we should not make a business plan dependent on the government subsidy. So at Micromax, yes, we are wanting to be a part of the Digital India. We are wanting to connect to our next set of consumers. And this opportunity of a financial inclusion is big at Micromax. We are working enough around that line. And I can only tell you over the next 12 months, you will see Micromax being a part of this movement of connecting the Indian consumers on the financial backbone also.
Fantastic. We'll take a few questions that have been coming in from our social feed, Vikas. So Hetal here wants to know, what are your suggestions for entrepreneurs who want to do something in the mobile business space?
A very big industry, very competitive industry, but I always maintain that the population is the biggest boon to this industry. There's enough and more that we can do in this industry. The industry can take enough and more brands, enough and more concepts. However, behind every brand, behind every concept, the desire in terms of what value do you bring to the industry, what value do you bring to the consumer, that's what is going to evolve, whether you can survive NX 100,000 volume, X, Y, Z months being in the business. However, for you to be sustainable, long in the industry and be able to survive year on year, do understand what is the value you bring to the ecosystem. If you are bringing a value to the industry, you're bringing a value to the consumer, I think you don't have to worry, the industry is big enough.
Okay, great, Hetal. I hope that answers your question. Pavan Kumar wants to know that, there's this rise of entrepreneurship that's been happening in India of late. Do you really think that has the potential to take India to the next level, to uplift India?
So India has always been knocking on the doors of the developed countries. We are at a stage where the developed nations on the West are not so, are actually conscious of the presence of India as a subcontinent. And I think over a period of time in the past also, India has given enough and more entrepreneurs We have had a lot of great business ideas coming in from India, going global. And I think over the last 3 or 4 years, the amount of acceptance of Indian entrepreneurs, their idea, their rational thinking has only led to most other countries admitting that entrepreneurship has evolved a lot in India. And in fact, if you really see now, we are seeing a lot of foreign investment coming into India, supporting the Indian entrepreneurs, supporting them to grow the business, upscale it, and actually become an industry. So I think it's only a matter of personal conviction. There's enough opportunities in India. The amount of funding is not a problem. The amount of organically growing the business is not a problem. So it's more of a matter of personal conviction about the project. And as I keep saying, it's about what value are we going to bring to the industry and the consumer, which will lead to a successful project and a successful business.
Great. Because what is just taking on from where you left off, right? Where do you see us standing in the global scale when it comes to innovation and solutions that are technology oriented?
Now again, see what happens is when we talk about innovations, somewhere down the line, we kind of try and compare ourselves about global technology innovations. We got to understand that every country has their own set of problems. What's going to be a problem in US might not be a problem in India, and what's going to be a problem in India might not be a problem in US. I mean, just to give you a very simple case which exists in our industry. Now, India as a country does not subsidize the mobile phones. So contrary to the Western countries where you will have a lot of global MNCs talking about very limited models going to the market, that's also because of the fact that the operators can subsidize the hardware over there in the Western countries. Over here in India, we can actually run up a new mobile phone model for every $6 increment in the bill of material of the mobile phone. Now that's what is India. Yes, that's not a problem in West, but yes, that's a problem in India. A $6 enhancement of the BOM resulting into a new mobile phone, that's probably an innovation in India, might not be innovation in the West. So I think we got to understand that innovations are always relative, and innovations are ultimately applauded for solving an issue. So as long as the innovations solve the issue for which it has been designed, I think it's a substantial and a sizable innovation.
Fantastic. Sachin here has sent us a question on Twitter. He's talking about the new wave of devices for Digital India and what Digital India needs, and how open would Micromax be in terms of making design changes to their new series of products as they come out, phones in particular.
So as a brand, Micromax has always been open to consumer feedback. While we have a very robust and a very mature design team, we always encourage the consumers to give a feedback into the next set of inclusions that can come both at the hardware and at the software level, thereby increasing the experience quotient for the end consumer on the mobile phone. So I think that if there's any design changes that are recommended moving forward in terms of adoption of the different concepts of Digital India, we at Micromax would be open. However, as I've always said, for us, a design change which gets into commercialization will be something that we are very, very comfortable and clear about, is that it's going to be adopted by the end consumer. We're not here to showcase a technology, we are here to provide an experience to the consumer. So if we can do that versus a design change that has been proposed or recommended by the consumers, we're more than willing to adopt it.
Fantastic, because you've seen this whole device landscape play out in India over the last decade. And as Digital India becomes real and people are talking about the citizen's device, in your mind, what is that ideal citizen's device and what should it do for the citizen?
So as we get the next set of consumers connected, I think it's very important to outgrow any differentiation that we've often spoken about in the landscape of being a hardware disruption or a software disruption. What we are looking at is a country which can get the next set of consumers connected by what we call as an experience. The consumers do not care if the experience is coming by the hardware or is coming by the software. But I think the whole innovation, the growth of the hardware and the software put together, thereby propelling the consumers for the adoption or being connected basis the experience. I think that's what is very important. That's what is the disruption that the India is now looking at, and that will get the next set of consumers connected.
Fantastic. We have a team that actually sent us something on social where they're working on a text-to-speech solution. And how open would you be to integrate something like that on your platforms?
It's a technology that has always been promising, but at the same time has few of the challenges basis the different dialects which are being used in India. One, we have to understand we are a country of multiple language. So anything like this that we want to implement has to have support of multiple language, has to have support of multiple dialects. Now, if we go down from north of India to south of India, from west of India to east of India, we all know we change the language we use, we change the dialect we use. The adaptability of the solution to both these changes, I think that's what is going to be disruptive. There is no two thoughts about it that something like this is the requirement of the hour. We in India do require this. We are at Micromax are moving into this direction. We've kind of got a hold about the different language solutions. We are working on the voice synthesis. In any partnerships with the budding entrepreneurs, we would be more than welcoming that.
Fantastic. I think we can take a couple of questions from Pune again.
Yeah, hi. I'm from Team 24 Forest Learning. We are a digital education. Okay. We are a digital education company for rural and remote areas. So we are looking at the skilling and the education system there. So we have built a system which is portable enough to carry, and we create a Wi-Fi zone. So basically, like I would like to ask, is there any plans within Micromax for rural Indian education or skilling which is going on, which we could align, or how we can partner with Micromax to use their tabs for the rural areas?
So as we speak, it's one requirement that's really big in India, and at Micromax, we would be open to suggestions about how to go around removing this obstacle and getting the next set of Indian consumers or next set of Indian rural consumers to be more educated. If it talks about a PPP kind of a business model, we are open. If it talks about a long-term investment by Micromax, which can be, made in one go, and the set of consumers who get benefited by the investment can reap in the returns over a period of time, we would be open. However, the prudency of the project and the desired end result is going to be equally important to Micromax as we go adopting this solution. So if it really is able to resolve a lot of issues which are not resolvable in any other instance, yes, we would be open.
Hi, this is Jasveer Singh. We are from Team Sense It Out, and our company, our startup is IoT and cloud-based automation system for agriculture. So we are dealing with lot of data networks in our system, which will be placed in the rural areas for agriculture, and we'll be using a lot of GSM systems on it. Okay, and we are also giving an app to the smartphone farmers with smartphone users. So with this GSM system, lot of GSM systems, can Micromax help us in any way?
It's a very your project centric question. For me to generically go ahead and answer this, I would really need to know a lot more details. However, as I've completely maintained throughout this interaction, if there's a way that we can add value to the project, yes, we would be loving to do that. But it's very important for us to really understand the consumer benefit. You got to understand, guys, we are a very consumer-centric brand. You've really not seen Micromax showcase a technology without an experience. So as long as we understand what the issue is that we are looking to resolve, what is the next level of utilitarian comfort that we are able to provide to the consumer. As a brand, I can tell you on all the projects, we are more than open in adopting something and taking it to the mass level. we do need to understand what is the consumer benefit and why should consumer be, putting his hand in his pocket and bringing out more money. That's what is very important to the brand Micromax.
Hello sir, I'm Gunjan from Team Telmet. My product is for visually impaired person where I'm developing a consumer wearable device in form of glasses. The device will be able to process the image and would be giving an optical character recognition. So the sound output will be given to a visually impaired person. The same technology could be used for in libraries or anywhere such that a visually impaired person would be able to do all kind of tasks. Now the thing which I want to ask is I have my proof of concept ready, but the hardware which I am developing is distance away. So what advice will you be giving me in case what kind of the strategy should I adopt in order to proceed further?
So it will be important for us to understand what is the level of the proof of concept, how far is it from being commercial. But I think what's important is you're blessed to be in a country, India, where we have enough of hardware and software innovations to actually take a prudent proof of concept to the market. As I've advocated for the multiple partnerships towards your path of success, I think it's important for you to, reach out to probably the educational institutes, the private sector, to really understand if building the hardware is not your forte, maybe you can bring in a partner who's kind of very proud of building a hardware disruption and bases your proof of concept, bases the power of your technology. If the solution promises to be at that level where it can be adopted by the consumer, I think you've hit it.
So when Micromax started, like when the Micromax originated, they started selling the product before even producing them. So what was the strategy at the inception of Micromax? I want to know about that if you can.
Once we brought it in India and we actually gave it at the retail counters. But I think what we did, was, as I've always said, to study the gap between what's available and what's required. As Ishwari was earlier stating about the first long battery backup phone, it's only prudent that a country in India, which has huge power outages, we're getting to be much better now, but with a country like India with huge power outages, a matter of a better battery backup on the mobile phone was as simple as learning ABC in the grade nursery. But what we did was smartly innovated on the design of the mobile phone so that to reduce or kind of eliminate the standby battery usage, and definitely worked onto a hardware innovation to bring a bigger battery in the same form factor of the mobile phone without making it very thick and bulky. So as in your project, you've done the need analysis and reaching out to your set of TG, which is visually impaired or visually challenged right now. I think if your need analysis versus the solution you're giving is there in terms of the requirement of the market, then it's only a matter of partnering with the right kind of a hardware design institute or a hardware business organization, which you can partner and take the concept to the market.
Hello, my name is Shobek and I'm from Team Apna Seva. We are building an Aadhaar-based point of service terminal which is catered to rural and semi-urban India, which provides a bouquet of services for the end user such as banking, e-ticketing and bill payment. My question is actually about the concept of e-commerce. So one of the biggest criticisms that I have about e-commerce is that it eats up the business of the local vendors and physical stores. So in the future, do you see any kind of synergy where e-commerce can actually be inclusive and complementary to the business of physical stores?
So guys, this is a myth. No business will be, able to take away the established channel unless and until you're not able to provide enough value to the whole supply chain. Now, a retailer who's got a presence physically in a locality has to understand what he or she is bringing on the table and how he or she will be able to fight the might of e-commerce. I think there's a lot of value add that the physical retail brings in terms of touch and feel of the product. not everything which is not seen can be sold on the e-commerce. E-commerce is a, you know, a very big luxury. It's a very big requirement of convenience. However, there are enough and more people willing to slug it out to actually see the product before they buy it. So as long as it's a very meticulously planned balance between offline and online retail, I don't think there's prudence into the fact that, you know, the physical retail is going to not let e-commerce succeed, or e-commerce is going to eat away the physical retail. It's going to be a balance. There could be, you know, in terms of evolution and balancing, there could be, you know, stress into any particular retail form factor. However, in a balanced environment, and we've seen this much more in the developed countries and the other developing nations, once this balance is achieved, it's a very harmonious life, e-commerce and physical retail. In both, we should understand are equally important, but both have very defined target group or target audience. What physical retail is going to address, e-commerce is not going to address, and what e-commerce is able to address, physical retail might get challenged to address.
Hi, my name is Naresh. I would like to ask you a general question. What could be a common mistake of an entrepreneur, and what would you advise, and what is, if you could share any of your challenges when you were in a startup position?
So guys, one thing we got to appreciate, nothing is easy, right? And if it's easy, it's no longer an opportunity. As I said, we are a hugely populated nation. If anything comes easy, it's already taken. So if you really understand an opportunity, if you really see an opportunity, understand that it has a few challenges, if not many, and that's why it's still an opportunity. Otherwise, it would have been taken. So when we started, yes, when we started into mobile phones, this was an industry which was dominated by the global biggies. We always had global multinational companies with huge R&D budgets who were always releasing the products in the market and fulfilling the requirements of the consumer. What we sensed out as an opportunity was the fact, being a local, we were able to see a lot of local requirements, or being an Indian based out of India, we were able to relate to a lot of requirements of the consumers. And most of the global MNCs who used to design their mobile portfolio up in countries either on the west or the east side of India were designing sitting onto multiple feedbacks they got from all across the world. Their ability to satisfy the requirements of an average Indian consumer was not 100% up there. They were doing a very reasonably good job. However, there was a lot of gap in terms of what the consumers wanted versus what he was made to buy. And we seized upon this opportunity, and we always knew that the mobile device that we intend to bring to the consumer would do voice, would do SMS, might do data, might not do data. But beyond these three parameters, that device is got to solve one issue for the consumer with the global MNCs could not. And that's where we created a portfolio which was more, let's say, more embraced by the end consumer. Simple example, like I just spoke about the long battery phone. We redesigned the QWERTY format of the mobile phone to take away from it being a business phone to it being a very youth-centric chatting phone. The Blink phone, wherein we made it more like a ornament, a jewelry item for the female set of our consumers. So we've always tried to look beyond the only communication need in the mobile phone, and we've tried to see how well will the mobile phone set into the lifestyle of the consumer. I think that's what has differentiated us in this industry, and that's what has compelled us to be in the industry over the last 6-7 years that we've been.
Fantastic. Just taking on from that, Vikas, you know, how much does Micromax focus on grounds up user research, whether it's for your devices or whether it's for the user interface on the devices?
So it's a constant activity at Micromax. There's a constant endeavor approach in the market that Micromax is in terms of reaching out to the consumers, reaching out to the retailers, and understanding what's that next big challenge that the consumer has. And when we go about mitigating that challenge, it's not that we are able to overcome the challenge in the first go itself. We also pace ourselves because we understand how the consumer will be able to grow along with us. And for us, it's a journey. We handhold the consumer to take him to that level where the challenge is constantly mitigated. It might be through one design change on the portfolio, or it could be probably two or subsequent design changes. But yes, it's a journey for us to take the consumer, to lead the consumer to the point where the particular requirement is actually fulfilled.
Because as we go through this whole digital India journey and technology is becoming integrated in everything that we see and everything that we do, in your opinion, which are the sectors that could benefit the most from technology innovation?
We as a nation, we've not been so connected over the past few years. Obviously, with the vision of the government, with our able Prime Minister wanting to get all the consumers, all the Indian fraternity to be connected, there's a lot of effort and emphasis by the government of India also in terms of passing the various social benefits by ensuring that the people are connected. So the connectivity of digital India is from both the angle of being aware to the angle of being a beneficiary. So in this aspect, we got to understand technology is going to be the path towards realizing a connected India. But what's more important is to understand what we are trying to do. Has it got anything to make our consumer more aware, more connected, or does it have any kind of a inclusion for the consumer where he or she is able to derive any benefits for being connected? I think with these two thoughts, if most of the solutions are designed, if most of the connectivity is provided, we are bang on in terms of what the nation desires and what we are bringing forth.
Fantastic. We've got another question on social from actually one of our teams. They're a team called Air Paper that's developing a devices that uses unused FM frequencies to transfer images and data, and these can be used in remote locations with no internet access. And they want to know, how much you'd be willing to help prototype this on some of your devices, or how you can help pitch it.
Interesting. So this kind of a work, yes, is happening at Micromax. We got to be prudent about two things in this. One is the fact that the unauctioned or unlicensed frequencies right now, what is the possibility of government entering into a licensing or auctioning these frequencies? To the security aspect. While yes, there's always an endeavor amongst entrepreneurs to use this, we got to be prudent about the whole security aspect when we use anything which is unlicensed. When it is unlicensed, we do have a lot more liability. We do have a lot of self-assurance to ensure that whatever we're using is not going to be used for in the wrong hands, does not get into a process which is not something that we advocated. So keeping that prudency in mind, it will be very important to run through the whole concept of using these particular frequencies with Department of Telecom to understand if there is any liability or anything that we are walking which we should not be. If that's sufficiently clear and we do not impose any threat or danger, I think that's a very unique concept, and we could really look at bringing that to a device. Might not be a mobile phone, but definitely a device.
Great. Because one of the things that entrepreneurs always sort of dabble with is this whole fear of failure. I'm sure that as you started off, you must have seen or faced this at some point of time. So what would your advice be to the entrepreneurs on dealing with failure?
See guys, as we go in for our academics and our tests and all, so that's something that we always have at the back of the mind. Look, I need to score good grades, and there are people who think, okay, let me at least pass. So when you toss a coin, it's going to come on a head or a tail. Now, if you don't toss a coin thinking, no, I just bet for head, what if it comes to tail? You're not going to go anywhere. So failure, yes, it's one side of the coin, but I think it's important for us to learn from every failure and ensure that we do not repeat that same mistake in a future journey. I think if every failure can teach us something and we can take the learnings from that failure into our life, it's only going to make us more mature, more strong to face the threats in the near future.
Fantastic. One of the other things that you alluded to multiple times was, how closely you work with the ecosystem and partners, forging collaborations in areas where you might not have a direct play. So when you're faced with a situation where you think things aren't really all that rosy, how do you deal with, balancing expectations of your partners?
So yeah, it's very important for us to really understand whether there has been a commercial into an area where we are not right now. As we go about designing a next set of innovation, we do try and think around, we do try and learn more in terms of the financial successful models with what is not available at Micromax. And our ability to self-stitch something is propelled by the fact that if there's not a successful commercialization of the concept, that's the time we build it ourselves. However, if there's a successful commercial rollout of the concept, we like to adopt and partner that concept. Yes, we do believe that the partner needs to be, financially and otherwise motivated and rewarded for that. But keeping that in the mind, we generally do not try to reinvent the wheel. We got to understand that anybody who's made a commercial success is that much more open to modify, alter, and hence better the solution, provided when you talk to them in a very clear manner. You should be, willing to put down on the table in terms of the benefits you can provide them when they make that alteration and the cost that they are going to incur for making that alteration. If the balance is achieved, I can only assure you, be it a business house, be it an entrepreneur, everybody is willing to walk that path. So rather than reinventing the wheel, if we try and make the innovations only when there is a lack of a successful model, I think that helps you time your solution and really look at being in the market ahead of the time.
Fantastic. You do business all over the world. Which are some of the countries you think India can really, learn from in terms of the way we foster innovation or the way we go about bringing ideas faster from mind to market?
So wrong question, has a lot of political overtures, but I think what I can tell you is every country, and when I say every, I really mean every country has their own sense of achievement into different innovations. As we get more and more connected, I think internet is really, a boon for an average consumer globally. And if we can learn more about the success stories in different parts of the world, look at the adaptability and the adaptability of those solutions over here in India and turn out something which is more required. So we could always respect the innovations which have happened across the globe. Different countries have their own style, own ways of encouraging and fostering innovations. I'm sure at Government of India, the different ministries are looking at what the different governments are doing to encourage and foster innovations. And what I can tell you is there's enough and more happening in India in terms of encouraging entrepreneurship and innovation. And what I'm given to understand, this is not the end of it. There's enough and more which is being done right now as well. And all I can say is it's a very, very exciting time to be in the globe. There's a lot of recognition of what you're doing. There's a lot of discovery of what you're doing. And if we can keep ourselves personally motivated, there's enough of target audience who are looking at adopting a solution, provided you are able to, full scale, upscale your model and actually provide a solution to the general cause that is required.
Fantastic. What caused you to take that leap of faith to take Micromax's products and solutions outside the borders of our country?
Oh, India is a great country. We do talk about having no barriers in terms of a brand A or a brand B, both from east or western side of India, to come and launch their devices in India. So having taken that competition head on, having created a brand which has always been proud of the fact that the way we connect to the consumer, we were sure that it's not a geographical limitation that we have in terms of connect of the consumer. The basic requirements of the consumer across the world remain same. We need to profile our TG, our target group, better. And as we moved out of the boundaries of the Indian subcontinent, I think that's where we related to the consumer. So what we related to India with an Indian consumer, we relate to a Sri Lankan in Sri Lanka, we relate to a Russian consumer in the Russia markets. Similarly, we relate to a Bangladeshi consumer in the Bangladesh markets. What's a portfolio in Bangladesh might not be a portfolio in India. What might be a portfolio in Russia might not be a portfolio in India. And yes, there are models which successfully, are provided to the consumer all across the operational territory of Micromax. So I think that innovation bit, that connectivity bit to the consumer, that's what is very centric to the brand as we move from the Indian geographies to the other part of the world.
Fantastic. There's been a lot of interest around the wearable devices across the teams as well. A lot of projects are in that area. What are your thoughts, especially when it comes to wearables vis-a-vis healthcare and security in particular?
So wearable for me is more of a device format, and the likes of the healthcare and security are more of the requirements. So the format of wearable, and I did touch upon this briefly in the past about 30 minutes. The format of wearable has to get into resolving an issue or has to get into resolving a utility. So whether the wearable in the connectivity requirements of being connected with the mobile phone is able to solve probably a healthcare requirement or a security requirement, is going to lead the wearable to a mass adoption. From the frills of technology delight, I mean, it's always heartwarming to see my call on my watch, but that might be a short frame delight, but that might not be the sole reason of me putting that wearable on my wrist and carrying it through the next 12 months of my life. So what's going to be more important is what's that utility which ensures that the band or the watch I wear is something that I wear 12 months down the line, and not only for a month or a 2 month where it's a technology delight.
Fantastic. I think we could go on, and your words have been really motivating. If I were to summarize just a couple of things for entrepreneurs, for innovators, think of your plan as being the only plan. There is no plan B. Put all your focus and energy on what you're working on, and go at it with everything that you have. Collaborate, find partners that will help you move forward. Vikas, any final parting words from you before we close the session?
Best of luck.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, and thanks, Vikas, so much for taking time out to do this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.